I'm joined, not Max today. We got Jake Anderson alongside. We got a lot of Phoenix Rising stuff to talk about, haven't we? The first preseason game just took place this past weekend, and we're going to be breaking that down along with a lot of other news that we've been hearing over the past week. But Jake, in here on a Tuesday night, no Max today.
No Max. I heard he's ducking his responsibilities.
He's ducking his responsibilities, and maybe that's not the only thing. But hey, we'll get into that one a little bit later, because first, as I mentioned, we got a lot of Phoenix Rising stuff to talk about, and I think we should start by talking about that preseason game. And Jake, I feel like this is going to be a little bit short, this bit of the discussion, because we both know what we got out of that game. But what did you get out of that game?
Yeah, there's nothing I hate more than meaningless minutes. Right? It's a preseason match. The starters played for 30 minutes, right? I liked what I saw from some guys. I liked what I saw from Panos. You could tell he's not 100% yet, right? He's still rehabbing that ankle injury that he played through in the playoffs. Seeing Cabral for the first time, did not realize how big of a man he is. So I think he's going to be an interesting combination of size and speed, which is not necessarily something Rising had last year. I think that's a new wrinkle. I love getting to see Kush play for a kid who just turned 6, a kid who just got his license so he could drive himself to training, right? He had a sense of poise on the ball. I mean, right, you can still tell he's a kid out there playing against men, but he still has some size in him that he'll grow into. Like, he's still growing. You know, you saw what you wanted to see from 30 minutes of 9 out of the 11 players are going to be expected to play, right? I mean, the goalkeeper that started was not even Phoenix Rising's goalkeeper. It was Portland's. I mean, that should just tell you.
Well, that tells you a lot, right? That tells you
all you need to know about the seriousness of the match.
Exactly. Rocco Rios-Novo out on international duty. Patrick Kukovsky not able to play in this game either. And so, yeah, they ended up with a kid in goal in the second half.
Stenberg was out as well. Julio Dorothiotto.
Stenberg out. Julio Dorothiotto only just arrived on Thursday. So, of course, he wasn't ready and up to speed, ready to go in this game. And yeah, I mean, as you pointed out, right, you had for one half of that game a Portland Timbers player playing for Phoenix Rising in goal, because Phoenix Rising did not have enough goalkeepers to work through the rotations that they wanted to get through. So I think it was one of those games where, look, I think that the biggest attraction really for that one was the fans having the opportunity to mingle afterwards and get out there with the players and the coaching staff and have those conversations and have fun. Good opportunity for the kids to get out there as well. But the game itself was one of those ones where it felt like a training ground exercise in reality, right? It was the first friendly for Phoenix Rising, the first friendly for Portland Timbers. What you saw from those two teams was ultimately a desire to get out there, get a few minutes out there, giving a bit of a jog around, a bit of a run, see what you can do in some, broadly speaking, game-like situations, right? Showing you the ability of players to start working with each other, read each other's movements, find themselves in different spaces. But ultimately, you're not going to get a whole lot out of it, because it's just almost like an extension of the training ground in a lot of ways, right? It's not really much more to it than you'd see on the training page. It's just seeing a different team and being able to maybe put people out there and try a few things out. But it didn't really tell us a whole lot, right? And this is the thing. I think as we go through this preseason, what we're going to see more and more is going to be patterns starting to emerge. I think by the time we reach that LA Galaxy 2 friendly at the very latest, we'll be able to talk a lot more about, I think, what we're expecting this Phoenix Rising team to do. We do know, and I think this was one of the key things when we look back at it from just some of the conversations afterwards, when we chatting with Danny Stone in the press conference afterwards, and this one probably the one to really key in on is, of course, the conversation about, well, what is it that you want to do stylistically when you're coming off of this one era? Where are you going from here? And I think we got a little bit more direction on that in terms of well, we're not reinventing the wheel, but we maybe do want to see things be a bit more exciting. We want to see maybe a little bit more up-tempo. And that was one of the big criticisms of Phoenix Rising last year, I think, at times, that they didn't really have almost that sense of urgency at times. They were very much a possession-based team, and we knew that. Everybody knew that. But they didn't always have the ability to step it up a gear, at least in the regular season. That appears to be something that Danny's trying to do differently.
Right, and we weren't expecting to see, all-out attack or an all-out, or just even trying, really, in terms of these guys still need to get up to tempo for fitness, right? Like, these guys aren't going to go a full 90. We weren't expecting that. I think the biggest thing I was looking forward to seeing was what you just said is, what is the shape of this team going to look like? Are there going to be tweaks? Are there going to be differences? And it was hard to gauge in 30 minutes because some of these guys haven't played with each other. Right? I mean, just for example, I noticed Panos really having to come back deeper to get on the ball just to maybe switch the play, right? And Portland, I mean, Neville had them playing such a high line. I mean, these guys were basically just beyond midfield. So we saw a lot of long balls from the back, a lot of diagonals. Will we see that throughout the course of the season, or is that just more of a result of the fact that you had so much space in behind that you almost are forced to play that ball? But one thing I was really excited to see was Gabby Torres back. I think that is almost going to feel like a new signing because of how much time he missed last year. And you honestly forget how good of a player he is. And I think the wing depth that this team has, especially when you play in this 3-5-2, 3-4-1-2, 3-4-2, it's fluid with the ball and in defense, right? But with a 3 at the back system, with the wing backs being probably the most important part of that in terms of defensive positioning and then getting the ball out wide and then back in toward the middle. I think this team's very deep at that position. You see the abundance of midfielders that they have, which goes to add to that. So I'm very much seeing potentially a more fluid and more attractive style that you just said we should be able to see more so when they're playing against other USL teams in the last part of preseason.
Did you mention Gabby Torres there? I think it is worth reiterating sometimes, I think, how much he can really impact this team in the attack. And you can tell that from some of the numbers he had. That first season when he showed up in Phoenix, right at the very end of the season, he only got 4 games in with Phoenix Rising at the end of 2022. That was the Phoenix Rising team, of course, that missed the playoffs that year for the first time since the Arizona United days. He still came in, 4 games, 3 goals and 2 assists. Right. And that was not on a good team. Even last season, 16 USL games, he gets 1 goal, 6 assists. This is someone who contributes to this team. We can expect him to, yes, he can finish if he gets in those spaces in front of goal, but you're not necessarily always looking for that, and he'll still find ways to contribute by finding a teammate, finding ways to get the ball to them and really create some dangerous moments. And I think, especially given, and we'll move on now to, I think, one of our new signings, but especially given the impact that Remi Cabral can have, I think that'll be interesting to see how Gabby Torres can really link up with him. But let's touch on that one, right? So with 2 signings last week, Remi Cabral, will start with him first. He signed on loan, that one coming in on Wednesday. He's a forward. Of course, he had a share in the Golden Boot in MLS Next Pro last season with Colorado Rapids 2. 19 goals in 20 games. What a just stat line, that one alone.
Yeah, that you literally cannot ask for any more. I mean, if it was half that, you would be ecstatic. If you score in half your games, every other game, you're going to take that without any question. But to score in almost every single game, like I said, I was not. Maybe it's because the last time we saw him, he was with Los Dos, and he wasn't that big, but he has a towering presence about him, and he does a lot of pace, and he knows that. And I think I don't expect him to replace the 34 goals that they have to replace with Arteaga and Trejo. But I still think he could get in the high teens, and if he can really get on, maybe some low 20s. I mean, if he's going to be the out-and-out main number 9, you're going to expect him to be the one taking most of the shots.
Yeah, no, and you would expect him to be that player. I mean, when you look at some of the things he had to say himself, he described himself as a technical player with speed. I can put the ball in the back of the net, but my first thing is to play well. So he's someone who... Yeah, he's definitely a bigger player up front. You mentioned it earlier as well, which is you were surprised at the height on the guy. But he's quick. And I understand Michael's comment here. I will address that actually. And then Michael's comment, my only question, why is a 23 or 24-year-old player playing in Next Pro? I understand that, but what I would say here, and I think this is really a critical one, is that's a great argument unless you absolutely tear up the league in the way that he did. I think that what he showed in that is that he's definitely above that level. Definitely above that level. Again, 19 goals in 20 games. You don't get that kind of scoring return, especially because when you actually delve into it, I believe there was only one hat trick in there as well. So it wasn't as though he was scoring in a handful of games and just absolutely ripping certain teams to shreds and then turning around and doing nothing for the next month. That wasn't what we saw. So Jet's comment as well. Yeah, he did actually play on the wing with Los Dos. He had a little bit of a change around, so he was on the wing more with Los Dos. He's also someone who spent some time playing as like an attacking midfielder, a number 10 kind of role. But last season when he was with Colorado Rapids too, he played as more of a 9, and that's what ultimately I think in that season really, really seemed to work well. I know there was a comment in here from Mitchell up at DNVR at our sister network up there, who made a comment back in September about how Remi Cabral scored a goal every 74 minutes for Rapids. That's just a... Wow. That's just an insane number. And again, from everything I've seen from the people up in Denver and what they're saying about this guy, there seems to be a good buzz around him from people who watched him last season playing in Next Pro. They really think that he's someone who can contribute.
I mean, and to answer him playing on the wing, I mean, Danny Trejo wasn't necessarily a center forward.
No, he wasn't.
Vegas, right? It was him and Cal Jennings, and they kind of just poached him. They were so lethal on the wings. Rising knows that firsthand. Every time they went up there, it felt like they were getting killed by them. And Danny ended up making that change to play more centrally, and it worked, right? I mean, it hit, and it really kind of took off once Panos came and was able to really get him on the end of these balls in behind. I'm looking forward to now Rising potentially having an aerial attack as well as speed, because that was just something that, for Arteaga's size, he isn't necessarily the greatest in the air. I mean, he had a couple of headed goals, but he should have been better for his size, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Because, I mean, again, it's 34 goals, right? It's 2 top 5 scorers from last season that you were missing and you have to replace. And whether that's going to be additional wingers like Gabby Torres is having to score, Panos is going to have to be scoring more. Gallardo is going to be playing more and having to score more. Like, somebody's going to have to replace that, because 34 goals is 34 goals. That's over half your output.
Indeed it is. I'll take one more quote actually here from Remi Cabral. When he signed, he said, "From my side, I only know bad things about coming to play Phoenix. I had awful experiences." Right? And I understand that. He's saying when he was playing with LA Galaxy too, they got beaten by this team quite a bit. But at the same time, he scored in 3 of the 6 games that he played against Phoenix Rising. So there's Danny Trejo comparisons. I'm just starting to, hey, you piece these bits together and you just kind of run with it, don't you? I mean, Danny did the same. Danny tore up Phoenix when he played him.
Yeah.
Even though he was on the losing side a fair few times, he still managed to find the back of the net in those games.
Oh, and when they signed Trejo, it was one of those where, like, thank God he's off Vegas now. Just he was a pain. He was a menace.
Yeah.
To have that guy in your squad. I guess Remi wasn't on the Los Dos team from my infinite no tie game that started Tiegate.
That is a good question, actually. I'm not sure if we know that one.
It was 2021.
Ooh, that is a very good question. You're going to make me look this up now. The infamous Jake Anderson tie game.
Reese?
Go on. Starlucky Reese isn't here for some reason. He didn't show up either. So it's just me and Jake for today. But tell the people, for those who, many of them, of course, know the story, but tell the story of the no tie game.
So, yeah, O and I go to LA because there's in 2 games in 4 days of Los Dos and then OC. And I had been looking at the history between Rising and Los Dos. And at the time, Rising had won 9 in a row. Not 9 unbeaten, 9 wins in a row. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the goal difference was 24-3. So, something absurd. Rising had absolutely dominated the series up until that point. And I remember saying to Owen, I don't respect this team enough to wear a tie tonight. And, of course, Owen goes, well, you know what's going to happen if they lose. I didn't think they were going to lose, but sure enough, Tate Schmidt gets his second red in 3 halves?
Yeah, he had, no, not even 3. He played less. He got a red card before halftime in the one game, served his suspension the next, and then the next game comes out
and he got a red,
card in the first half yet again. So in the spell of less than 90 minutes of actual playing time, he received 2 red cards.
So Rising loses, what, 3-0, 3-1?
3-0 in that game. Looking at this, Remi Cabral did play in that game, interestingly enough.
So he was on the good side one time.
He was on the winning team in that game, yes.
So to wrap up the tie story, 3 days later, whatever, we head up to OC, and I put the tie back on, and sure enough, Rising wins at OC in the regular season for the first time in club history. From there on out, I wore a tie to every game. Until last season, I wore a polo, and I think it was Memphis, and they absolutely throttled them. So I put that to bed then. But
very true.
That's the origin of Tiegate, if you didn't know the story already.
There we go. See, you learn a lot of things on this, especially when Max isn't here.
It was when Juan was still an assistant coach. Now look where we're at.
That was at a time when Juan Guerra and Danny Stone were both assistant coaches.
You're right.
One of whom is now, you got to remember that, right? And I posted that on the day that Danny took his first press conference. That if you go back to March 21, they were announced in the same press release, the exact same press release, and as both Danny Stone and Juan Guerra joining the team as assistant coaches. So yeah, that's a long way back, that one. But there we go. That's Remi Cabral, of course, one of the new signings for Phoenix Rising. Another new signing is one coming in on Friday. We're going to talk about him. It's Laurence Wyke. Let's start talking about the on-field stuff in terms of the footballing side of things, okay? He comes in, he's a defender. He can also play defensive midfield. We've seen him in both roles. He spent some time with Tampa Bay Rowdies. He was most recently with Nashville. Didn't play an awful lot at all last season. Kind of bouncing around, loan signing in Tampa for a couple of games. He went down to Next Pro as well. He is someone, though, who's got a good amount of experience across the course of his career in USL in terms of 95 career USL championship games in both the regular season and the playoffs. He also previously played with Atlanta United as well, coming up there as well, and played in MLS with them too. He's someone who I think is quite highly regarded by the team. He's someone that I know people within the team have said that he's probably one of the better players in this league at what he does specifically. I'm intrigued what you think about this as a footballing signing.
From his on-field play standpoint, obviously, I think he has the skill. He'll be one of the better talented players on this team for sure. I mean, if you think about who this club has lost since August, you have lost Kevin Lambert and Carlos Harvey. You needed to replace them. Is Wyke a like for one of those two? Maybe he's more Kev than he is Carlos. I mean, I don't really know who is a like for like change for a guy like Carlos Harvey who just runs until the ref says you need to stop running, man. Right? Like he was an engine, and those players are very hard to replace.
And normally the referee said such with a yellow card.
Card, yes. So yeah, I think he's one of those players that if you need an emergency center back, he can drop back and play that role because he definitely has the ability to on the ball, which I think is paramount which is now the Danny Stone system, but I think is also going to be very similar to what we saw this team under Juan Guerra. Yeah, I mean, we have yet to see Julio Doriotiotto play. I expect Julio to be maybe a little bit more offensive-minded and maybe helps out, pushing forward a little bit more. But we'll see, right? I mean, Wyke was another guy who didn't dress out for the preseason game. So, a lot of the guys on the team who we expect to start didn't even play. So we still have, 6 weeks until the first match, March 9th. So, still a lot of time, but from a playing perspective, he's probably a player that's going to make this team very good, and the midfield depth, as I said earlier, is unbelievable.
It is, right? And this is something now I'll kind of draw in. You mentioned Julio Doriotiotto, right? Let's talk. He was in his press release when he was signed. It was announced that he's also someone who, depending on the formation, is comfortable playing as a 10. So yes, even though we kind of look at him as someone who may be a little bit more defensive minded in the midfield, here he is saying that if in certain circumstances he can play in a slightly more attacking role, a slightly more advanced role in that formation. So again, we'll have to see what they quite plan on doing in terms of where people will slot in. Not quite sure whether we'll see Wyke focusing more as a defender in this case, whether he's going to be more of a defensive midfielder. I mean, those are things we're going to have to wait and see. We may see a bit more of that picture as the preseason progresses. Of course, we're going to talk about Laurence Wyke. We do also have to address the elephant in the room in this one. We're going back to 2022 and the suspension that was then revoked very shortly afterwards. just to walk through the basic premise of what happened here. Laurence Wyke was accused of violating the league's policy on anti-discrimination, was issued a 12-game suspension by the league in the first instance. A few days later, the league convened an independent appeals panel which heard his appeal, determined the league did not have sufficient evidence to proceed by giving him the suspension, so they revoked that suspension. He served no suspension in the end. This is something that is still carrying on. I mean, there's a lot of discourse. We've seen it on Twitter. We've seen it elsewhere. I will take this opportunity. I think we'll bring in a quote here from Brandon McCarthy that he gave us in an exclusive interview with PHNX last week. He said, "We spoke to everyone we could, everyone at all aspects of it, people with the league, with Tampa, around Laurence, with Monterrey. We went to everyone we could looking for everything. There was not just smoke, but that there was fire. We found nothing." That's what Brandon McCarthy, Phoenix Rising sporting director, told us about signing Laurence Wyke last week. He spoke about how they went into a several-month-long investigation, looking into, kind of chatting with people around him, people who know him, who know of the incident, who were there on the night, and trying to really work out what happened. Obviously, still in a position whereby, look, this hasn't... It was dismissed because of a lack of evidence at the time. USL Championship, the United Soccer League, in an ongoing lawsuit at the moment with Laurence Wyke over this one. Laurence currently suing them for defamation, and in court filings, USL continuing to maintain that their investigation was in accordance with USL's policies and procedures at the time. PHNX did ask Monterrey Bay for comments starting last week, and we have yet to hear back from Monterrey Bay on that. So we needed to address that. I think is an important part of this. We can't really ignore it. But that's at the end of the day, we don't have any deeper answers for you that we can give you on that one.
Right. Neither of us were there. So I think that makes it difficult because we will never truly know what happened, right? It's going to be, he said, she said kind of scenario, which is unfortunate. From a Monterrey standpoint, why would they lie about it? But again, if there's no definitive proof in terms of how we handle things in court of law, versus the court of public opinion is completely different, right? The way I look at it is this. Obviously, Phoenix has a history of incidents like this, right? And it's not necessarily something that you want to invite in, given what has already happened in Phoenix. Given that you knew the response was not going to be well received, and it wasn't. From a on-field standpoint, and this is me purely speculating, if you just took his skill and his talent and the fact that he was not getting very much MLS time with Nashville, you had an opportunity to theoretically get a player at a high level that, should this cloud not be over him, might have cost you more. And again, this is me speculating that you're getting a high-quality player at an extraordinarily good value. Again, though, it brings in the questions, and we're not... he has the... I don't know if he's allowed to talk about it publicly, given the fact that he has a lawsuit.
There is, of course, ongoing litigation. Again, as I said, he's currently suing them in the Florida courts.
I would love to, at least maybe hear him address things publicly, sit down with him and have a private conversation. Just because we're so far removed from the inside of it, right? Well, all we know is what's been made public. Again, I'm not saying he did it. I'm not saying he didn't do it, because I don't think we'll ever truly find out. So then I think it then comes down to, do you do your due diligence? Do you, like Brandon said, do you ask everyone you could possibly ask? Do you ask his teammates? Do you ask his family? Do you ask Monterrey? Do you ask anyone who was there, anyone who knows this kid, and anyone that knows his character from when he was a young kid, if you could? Like, go as far back as you can. Has he ever been this type of kid? And then you make your decision. Then you make your judgment. Was this a misunderstanding, like he says it is, or did something actually happen, or is it likely that something happened? We'll never know, right? We will never truly know. You can only do an investigation on your own, make some inferences and try to make the best decision based on the information that you gathered. At this point, you hope Phoenix did all that. You hope that Brandon or Bobby or Danny or whoever was part of this process did everything they could possibly do, unturned every single stone that they could. And if this is the decision that they made because of the information that they found or didn't find, you hope it was the right one, and you can pretty much do nothing but support them at this point. Because if you just let it linger and you let this thing fester, I think it only does negative on the team, and it only does negative in the locker room. It's just outside noise that would want to be ignored, but it should not be taken lightly. Like it should not be something that just gets swept under the rug. It should not be something that is just saying like, oh, well, they didn't prove it, so let's move on. It's a very serious matter. We see this across the entire globe. It's not just a problem here in Phoenix. And to try to get this out of the game, to get it out of our beautiful game, is something that every single player, every single coach, every single fan, administrator, whatever you want to call them, needs to be working toward. So I'm hoping, because we were not part of that process, nor should we have been, but I'm just hoping that they did everything possible and made their decision based on the information that they were given. Because at this point, we'll never truly know.
Indeed, we will never truly know. So on that note, I think it's time for us to move forward a little bit. Of course, Phoenix Rising has their next preseason game coming up in a little bit over 8 weeks' time. Well, it's close to 2 weeks, actually. They'll be over in Coachella Valley. They'll be playing there at the Empire Polo Grounds, getting ready for a matchup with Minnesota United. And of course, if you're heading over there, much like I will be, it's a nice long drive, about 4 hours each way, potentially, depending on what part of the valley you are traveling from. But if you're driving over there, you're going to have to fill up on gas. And if you're going to have to fill up on gas, make sure to check out our friends at Circle K. And particularly, make sure to sign up for the Inner Circle Rewards program. That's right. If you sign up for the Inner Circle program, the Inner Circle Rewards, you will get 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. What a great time to use it when you're going to have to be filling that tank up because you're driving all the way over to Palm Springs, effectively, over in the Coachella Valley. You also save 3 cents per gallon every day. There's lots of other giveaways there that are also great. You get free pizza, coffee, fountain drinks, all kind of good stuff that you get over the time of being a member of the Inner Circle Rewards program. Make sure you go over, join the Inner Circle Rewards program for free. It's free to join, of course. And again, save that money on the gas by downloading the Circle K app today. And make sure, of course, check out the terms and conditions online, participant locations, all that stuff. CircleK.com. And if you're not making the trip, or if you're enjoying maybe just the weekend off we've got this weekend, where there is no formal preseason fixture on the books, maybe enjoy the weekend off with a nice cold beer. And if you're going to do so, why not make it a Four Peaks? Of course, Four Peaks, they've got the new Bad Birdie Juicy Golden Ale, a collab between Four Peaks and Bad Birdie. Max always raves about this one. Personally, I stick on the WoW normally. I'm a big fan of the WoW, but I hear a lot of good things about this Bad Birdie Juicy Golden Ale. I might have to try one at one point. Maybe I'm going to have to try and scam one off of Max there. Have you tried one there, producer?
I haven't tried one. I do have a name. It's not just producer.
I know, producer Eric.
No, I think
this is yeah. Look, I'm getting bullied here. I feel like I'm Max.
No,
wow.
Listen, this is actually an indictment on Max. So let's shift it back to him. How the hell do we not have any of these in the office?
That's a great question. Why are they not here? We're in the ads, and Max doesn't get them in.
That kid Gomita says he misses admin.
Let's not go that far.
No, let's not go that far.
But I mean, listen, man, I spend 99% of my freaking time here. I don't have time to go stop and get a Bad Birdie, you know? So if a juicy golden ale was just put into our PHNX fridge, I'd be able to try it for the first time. But somebody's on vacation.
Max is on vacation. You know, he could be getting his beers, and he's not. But you know what? If he's not going to do it, maybe I've got to go and find one myself. Maybe I'll have to
always got to just put things into your own hands.
I'm just saying, if you can't trust him. Hey, maybe I'm going to have to go and check out their 8th Street pub again. I do visit there reasonably frequently, to be perfectly honest. So, hey, maybe I'll go see if I can get it there. But, of course, you can also find these beers. Go visit 4peaks.com/locate to find all your favorite beers and events. And check out 4 Peaks Brew and 4 Peaks Pub on social media to keep up with the latest Arizona's hometown brewery. Remember, of course, you must be 21 or older to enjoy 4 Peaks. And please enjoy responsibly. Right. Jake. We've spoken about what's happened over the last week. We've spoken about now the preseason game, the new signings, all of that fun stuff. We still have about just over a month now to go until the start of the regular season on March 9th. Let's look big picture here for a minute. What is this team at this point still missing in your mind?
From a roster construction standpoint, I would like to see maybe one more forward. I know Danny said 1 or 2, and we got those 2 already, right, when he was on the show last week. But 22 players, I would like to see maybe closer to 25. You could bring up some academy kids to train with you. But if you look at 3 forwards, 3 out-and-out forwards, let's say one gets hurt, one gets red carded. Now you're down to 1, right? And then just in one match, that's a problem because you don't have a backup. Should he get tired? Should he be having a bad game? Whatever it may be. Should he get a red, right? And now you have none. I don't necessarily think it would be someone who you would expect to start at this point just because most of the guys, the big-name free agents, are gone. So I would almost expect it to be maybe another loan. Although we've spoken about the lack of quality that we've seen on the pitch from Phoenix Rising loanees that are specifically forwards.
Who got one again this season as well.
Right, and we've yet that will remain to be seen, right? I hope he breaks that streak. But yeah, I would just like to see at least.
You mean to tell me you weren't the biggest fans of Jackson Conway, of Lagos Kunga?
No, they're
of players of that ilk.
Their goal output for their position was left much to be desired.
That's one way to describe.
But yeah, I would like to see just more depth because and maybe the plan is if that were to happen, you emergency false 9 it, which they could do. You could have Julio or Panos potentially play that position. Although,
you can have Darius play as a 9.
Right, but I'm saying let's say Darius is the starter and Remi is hurt and Gallardo is red carded in that scenario, and then Darius is not playing well that game.
By the way, no, we're not bringing Corey Hertzog out of retirement. That's not happening. That's not happening. We are not bringing Corey Hertzog. No.
But whatever ends up happening, you have to then take Darius off. Now all 3 forwards are out of play. He gets red carded. What are you doing the next game? You don't have a 4th forward to throw in there, so now you're going to have to figure out a false 9 type of situation. I would prefer the likes of Julio and Panos to be able to play behind forwards and be the ones creating for them. But hey, they obviously have a plan. And the second part of the answer to your question is this team just needs more time together, right? You didn't necessarily the one thing came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Now you know who your manager is. Those ideas are going to be instilled. I mean, this team still needs another assistant coach.
Oh, it does. That's a critical piece now, right? And I think that's really important as we look at this. You've got to bear in mind right now that from the last update that we had, Rising's fitness coach has not yet arrived as well.
Right.
Due to visa issues. You're in a position whereby when you look at the actual frontline coaching staff in terms of Danny, in terms of Darnell King, who, I mean, he needs some time as well, of course, as we look ahead now at how he's going to adapt to this new role. I'm looking at these people and saying, where's the, even some of the others, and looking and saying, where's the native Spanish speaker? Which, given the composition of this squad, to me, is a pretty critical piece, and it's going to be an important part of winning some of those guys over and making sure that they're all together, that you can bring them together as a group. I think that's going to be critical, and yeah, I think that's honestly, even just in the near future, something that really... Do you want to make sure that you get the right decision? Of course you do. Of course you do. But it's also a question of how long are you willing? How long can you leave it? How long can you go until you ultimately make the decision on that one and move forward with someone?
And the difficulty, too, is preseason has started for basically everybody.
Yeah.
So if you're not already on a training staff, why aren't you? Would be a big question, right? I mean, theoretically, the most sought-after coaches would already be on a staff. And it's players, coaches, it's a lot like any other job, right? I mean, you're going to get a phone call because you've worked with somebody before and they're giving you a reference, or you are the person that they did work with before. Maybe Danny goes back to someone he's worked with in the past. Who knows, right? We don't know. It's main to be seen. But yeah, I mean, you get an assistant coach, you get another forward, give these guys some time together. I don't expect a slow start. It's not last year where you had 17 new players, right? The majority of these guys played together last year. Now it's just fine-tuning and replacing the major keys that you're losing. But I think that they'll be able to do that fairly quickly. And it just can Danny make his tweaks, and will that make this team take a little more?
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think there's still a lot of things. You're right in terms of time. I think there's something else that's really quite underrated, and this is when we look at some of what the team was able to accomplish in, what they've managed to do last season and how they built that out in terms of their preseason games, in terms of everything else. It felt like Rising played a lot more preseason games last season. Yes, there's not quite as much turnover, but there is still turnover at some critical positions. And to me, I almost wonder if adding an additional game or two, finding ways to do that, could be pretty important as you look at this preseason preparation. Because again, you've got to build those connections when you've got guys that are new in there. I mean, the midfield is different in a lot of ways, right? Guys like JP Scearce, guys like Dorothy-Otto, we don't know what we're quite going to see out of some of these people. You look at the front line, right? And Darius Formella, we don't know quite what role he's going to choose to play in, or is going to be chosen to play in this system. We don't know quite how Remi Cabral's going to look as he's put in there. There's a lot of things that need to be worked out as people get used to each other and people really, put all those things together. And I'm just personally, I'm wondering if the 4 games that are on the slate right now are the right way to go. And shout out to Preston 11 here, who's talking about the Cardinals and what they're up to. But this is, once again, not a Cardinals podcast. It's also not a Suns podcast, before someone chimes in with Suns takes again.
I'm in the wrong place, man. I thought that we were talking about the Suns this whole time.
We're not talking about the Suns, funnily enough, Eric. You'd be amazed, though, how often this happens. You'd be amazed.
Oh, no, I realize it because, sometimes I'll be producing the Bets show with Damon, and even though it's completely different, layout, different color, it's around the same time as the Suns show some nights. And people jump in there thinking it's the Suns show.
Oh, 100%.
So, welcome. Stay a while. These guys know what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a different form of football.
Learn something.
Rumor has it it's a better form of football, but you're not hearing that one from me. As we look, though, I will say here, actually, and Jet does bring up a comment here on they're on the list for the Tucson friendlies. They are on the graphic, but Tucson haven't announced anything else, so I mean...
Yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on.
I don't know what's going on there. They've announced one friendly in Tucson this whole time, and they've got a graphic that's got I
think Montreal played down
teams.
there already.
Montreal against was it Minnesota they played?
I'm not sure who they played.
I believe it was
real Montreal, not Montreal Bay. As
we found it a file
say.
earlier. Yeah, Monterey Bay, and we referred to as Montreal Bay, which obviously is not correct. But I mean, there's a chance that we see another game at it. I mean, look, I personally hope that we do. I do know that obviously Rising has had a history, of course, for playing against GCU. Not sure quite what's up with them not playing them this season. Not saying if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but again, to an extent, sometimes with these friendlies, it doesn't really matter who you're playing. You just want to get a bit of minutes. You want to get some minutes together whereby you can try and work on some different things. You can get used to each other. You can read each other's play better. You get used to those runs that people are going to be making. You get used to what kind of spaces they're going to find each other in. You get used to how quick the guy next to you is going to be running back, so you know what you've got to do when you're trying to recover on a counter-attack. But I think to me that's the biggest thing. Yes, the forward is an important bit. I do feel as though there is a need possibly for another body in there. And look, MLS, as preseason goes on, will find ways to cut people or find people that aren't ready necessarily to play in the first team for any extensive period of time, and they will make them available for loans to try and get them some minutes under their belt. But I don't know. I'm still, I think, at the one point just trying to work out quite what it is that they're going to do to really work on some of that chemistry as well going into this season. Because again, I just don't think the 4 friendlies is necessarily enough. Especially given we've seen some very weird stuff in past seasons. and a lot more games in general.
Right. And until Rocco gets back, they can't even play themselves.
That's true.
Like, they couldn't even do a 45.
I mean, you could get a kid, I guess,
right,
in goal,
but
and then
theoretically, you would want
with Rakovsky as well. But
you would want 11 pros versus 11 pros, and nothing against the academy kids, but you're an academy kid, right? Your future is to become a pro. The guys that they have signed that they're paying, right? You can't even do the 11v11 right now, and
it's true.
That's a combination of Rocco not being here, Patrick being hurt. Stenberg's not available for about a month, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, health is going to be the paramount importance. Getting fitness, getting guys up to 90 minutes. I mean, that's the tricky part of preseason, right? But I do think 4 games is a little light. I also think
because
that
you also look at it, right, and just even from a minutes, as you mentioned, they're working up the minutes, getting people back to fitness. When you look at what the coaches have often said in the past, they often start at about 30, then they move to 45, then you move to maybe about 60, and then you're moving up to 75 again. You're adding time constantly, yes, but you just think now, are you going to get all the way up there in these minutes? Or are you going to be rushing people or what?
I mean, maybe they do these inter-squad games. I mean, and those are behind closed doors, right? Those are just normal training sessions for them, and we don't actually get to see it. Maybe in
the week they're over in Coachella, they play another team there, and it's again just behind closed doors in a training session.
Right, and maybe there's trying to find these extra games because with one stepping down, you had that time period where not much was being done from a scouting or planning standpoint other than what he had already done. Because one had said on the way back from the final, January 15th, that so much was done. But maybe in the time that he was speaking to Houston, that they didn't end up planning the back end of after the MLS teams are done here and they go back and you have those couple of weeks where you can just play teams in your own league or play a GCU or I don't know. I mean, can you play one of the teams here? Can you play, what are they blanking on the name?
UPSL and
the team that Ryan Flood came from.
Like a UPSL
FC Arizona.
Team. Yeah.
I mean,
those kind of Sporting Arizona, those kind of dudes. When does Rocco get back? The way I'll just answer that quickly. It's like mid-Feb at the moment. I believe it finishes on the 11th of Feb. The pre-Olympic tournament, something like that.
I have not been following. Full disclosure.
I don't believe he's been playing. So yeah, that's kind of killed off my interest in that one. But yes, I mean, when you look at like teams like those UPSL teams and things like that, like they're there, they can play games against you. Look, it's at the end of the day, it's bodies, right? And I think you can broadly trust that teams like that, when they're told don't go and be an idiot, most teams tend to stick by that because that's what gets them the opportunity to play those kind of friendlies. They want the opportunity to play big teams. So yeah, I mean, I'm broadly speaking, I just feel like they can probably add a few more, and maybe they are playing some more of these behind closed doors. And AZ Monsoon FC, of course, Jet mentioning. We'll talk about Nisa later as well. But yeah, I tell you what, though, let's move on a little bit, and we're gonna take a quick break now. I know you're not a big beer guy, are you, Jake?
Not at all.
But this product, I believe, is something that you can give us some views on here. You've tried the old OGs, haven't you?
I have. I no longer do, but I have.
You have. You have. What was your take on those OGs there?
It's good. They taste good, and usually edibles kind of taste like shit, but these ones taste good.
See,
that's a glowing endorsement.
See, that's the thing about them is that they could just be candy,
right?
Like if they just said, "Hey,
this is
here's
candy.
here's a
fruit
candy,
snack.
Here's a gummy for you to have, nothing else, no strings attached, just a gummy, right?
No strings attached.
I'd still buy that."
Mm.
And then there's, of course, other added value.
There is, of course, other added value in there. But let's talk a little bit about OGs. Of course, they've launched the new Big OGs gummy. It's a mega version of the PEG's RSO. It's one of the company's most popular products, perforated into 10 slices, each with 10 milligrams for a total of 100 milligrams of THC. I'm also told by Max that they now have a vegan OGs as well that is available. That's something that I know some of our viewers who were speaking to me about OGs in the past, going back to 2022, actually brought up that they're good. But do they have a vegan version, or are they going to make one in the near future? Well, the answer to that now is yes. Yes, they do. You can go ahead and check out OGs at your local dispensary. You can check them out online as well. Find out more about where you can find OGs. Head over to ogsbrands.com. And of course, remember, 21 and over.
Full disclosure, Albert, I barely drink as it is.
He barely drinks as it is. There we go. He's not too
bougie for alcohol.
No, well.
Alcohol is poison.
He's...
That's my philosophy.
There we go. A little bit in moderation, of course. Enjoy responsibly.
21
as you do with anything. 21 over. There we go. See, he's got the disclaimers down. We bring this guy in a few times a year, and he's got the disclaimers. Times. He does come in a few more than.
He's here more than Adman now.
He's the new Adman. Do you want to replace Adman?
You want to get a tattoo?
He doesn't want to get a tattoo.
I don't have to get a tattoo, but I mean, should we bring that up now?
You know what? This is a great time to bring this up. We don't have Max Simpson with us today here in the studio. We do have some unfortunate news for you. Unfortunately, the Tattoo Live that was scheduled for Thursday is going to be postponed due to unforeseen circumstances. So the tattoo will not be taking place live on Thursday. Jake, your immediate reaction?
I found this out on my way here, right into Derek in the parking garage. I'm livid. What the fuck? Like, Albert, full disclosure, at the I won't say their name. At the old place, I used to work alongside Derek, and then I got to work alongside him and Jesse when I was covering the D-backs at the old place.
Yeah, so
I know Derek very well. Big fan of the guy.
Yeah.
Very much looking forward to him.
Derek was excited. He was going to be helping me call the live stream.
He's going to be emceeing the whole thing. So
he was going to be with me on the call.
I'm bummed. Like, what the hell, man?
No,
like listen, Michael in the chat saying, shocked. Oh, but really not that shocked. I mean, we all expected Max
to
ducking
to
it
be for months.
Chicken. He's a duck. He's a chicken. Whatever type of bird he is, it's a coward. He's a coward. This is incredible.
I'd like to clarify. I didn't personally put this on Max, but the decision has been made by the other people on here that we will blame him regardless.
No, we're blaming Max.
I think the key thing here is
it could have been done by now.
Yeah, that's the thing, right?
It could. Like, you're right. He sat on this for so long. He sat on it for so long that now it's annoying.
The man went to trial, and that was like 6 months ago. Like, come on,
it feels it, doesn't it? It feels it,
man. It takes an hour, 2 hours to get that tattoo.
You know, rumor has it, I think for every month since the final, the tattoo gets bigger. I think it
should just be an extra tattoo at this point. You want to wait another month, Max? You're getting 2 tattoos.
I hope they win it again, and he's got to get a second one.
Is that the deal? Is it a banner every time they win?
It isn't. But you know what I'll say? He did have an additional forfeit he's got to do, which we haven't been able to determine yet what the additional forfeit's going to be.
Oh, we should decide it now.
Do we make the additional forfeit just be like a second
tattoo?
So it's not a second tattoo if they don't win it, because that's almost too much for the additional tattoo.
Just to show it,
the forfeit.
For Mela, Darish got a tattoo before they got back from Vegas.
He agreed a bet with, for those of you who don't know, he made a bet with Panos Amanakis. Both of them agreed if the other player scored a goal and managed to, they won that game, that they'd get a tattoo with the initials and number of the person who scored the goal.
And what a freaking game
Panos
that was
a ridiculous game. And Rising come out as winners in that game. Panos scores a very good goal in that one. And Darius, that night in Vegas, goes and gets the tattoo with PA21 Las Vegas, Nevada on his leg.
On his calf. You can see it. Unlike Max,
it.
Who's putting it somewhere where you can't see it.
Max is...
Listen, he's the talk of the office. Nobody respects the man anymore.
Soft. You heard it here first. Soft.
If he waits any longer, his girlfriend needs a matching tattoo. Guilt by association. That's from Kevin. That's the forfeit? Is the bet isn't for him this season? It's for his girl.
I get the feeling that she won't agree to that. I've got to be perfectly honest. And unfortunately, Max, I don't think can agree to that on her behalf.
No, I know.
So, I don't think we're going to manage to get away with that one, unfortunately.
I think he should eat something disgusting.
The man already orders pizza with green bell pepper, half spinach.
No.
What more do we have
from Domino's?
No,
From
listen. No free ads, guys. Come on, ad man. Come on,
No,
new
he's
ad
not
man.
saying that in a positive.
No, I know.
I would never endorse that establishment.
This is an Italian. Look at the little. Where is it? There,
Right
there, right there. A little Italian flag. Come on.
Okay, this next forfeit, whatever it is, it cannot be something that he has physical like control over. Like he should have to eat something, and it's up to us to bring it to him so he can't duck
Shove it down his throat.
You know, no, not shove it down his throat, but like not, hey man, we have to set up getting you a tattoo, right? Because then that gives him too much control. We will bring you something absolutely disgusting to a show that is already scheduled, and you have no choice but to eat it.
I mean, again, diehards, if you want to tell us what you're thinking, tell us in Discord. And of course, remember that when Max gets that tattoo, and he will get that tattoo, he will.
I'll believe it when I see it.
He will. We will hold him to it. We will hold him to it. I will have words, and Max
I don't think
will
he should be allowed back at the stadium.
without a tattoo. I agree.
Right.
I agree.
I don't think he should be allowed back in the office.
That's a perfectly valid response as well.
I will say one brand name every 30 seconds until he gets a tattoo, just to put him against the clock.
Oh, there we go.
When is the Los Dos friendly?
The Los Dos friendly is on March the 1st, and I have it on good authority that there is someone coming over here who is very, very much wanting to see that tattoo and is insisting they want to see that tattoo. So it better be done by then. It better be done in time. It better be done in time. But of course, if you become a diehard, you will get to eventually, when it happens, see the stream of Max Simpson getting a tattoo live. Whenever that should be. We don't yet know, but you will be able to watch it. And of course, you get plenty of other great things that come along with being a diehard as well. You get the free shirt every year. You manage to get discounts as well on merchandise. You get access to all of the content on the website. And of course, you get access to our diehards only Discord, where you can mingle with other members of our diehards and also go out and mingle with other people here at PHNX as well, who are pretty active across all of the teams that we cover. So go ahead. If you haven't become a diehard yet, make sure to check it out on gophnx.com and become a diehard today.
Andrew, Max is just a pussy.
Andrew asked if getting a tattoo is that painful. If you've ever wanted to talk shit directly to Max, like not just through the chat on the show, but like directly to his phone.
It's another method of bullying him.
You want to pressure him and get this tattoo faster, become a diehard, and just keep sending him messages.
Tag him in the Discord every single hour until he gets it done.
I think we really need to put the pressure on.
You know, there is a Has Max got his tattoo yet account on Twitter. There is an account on Twitter. I think it needs to step things up. I think it needs to start tagging him every single hour until that man gets a tattoo. But then he'll just block you. But still, give it a go. Give it a go. Why not?
Make a new account.
Yeah. Well, should we talk about some serious news? Because there is a lot of stuff going on across the US in footballing sense right now. We'll start with a little bit of USL, of course. News coming out of Las Vegas Lights' new head coach appointed in a...
Maybe they'll get some players soon.
Maybe they'll get some players. They haven't got any players, of course, apart from a baseball player as their new owner. We'll see how things go. Cashman Field, the great reset is on. Las Vegas Lights. What will happen there? Bit of other news here, and this one a little bit more serious. Let's talk about it now. We do know that there's some stuff going on with... PSRA, the Referees Association for professional referees here in the US. They put out an open letter ahead of what's looking very likely like it could be a strike coming up very soon. They say that PRO, that's the entity that assigns referees, has allegedly started making some phone calls and asking officials about future availability for MLS regular season matches. MLS's regular season, of course, getting underway in less than a month. And here's what the dispute ultimately comes down to. They're trying to work on a new collective bargaining agreement. It was extended through till tomorrow. That's Wednesday, January the 31st. As a result of just a union vote to extend it until that point, but they have authorized strike action afterwards. The PSRA represents all of the referees in MLS in all roles, the referee, assistant referee, fourth officials, and of course the video assistant referees. The likelihood, if they was to be a work stoppage, it'd be the first time in MLS that's happened since 2014. As I understand it, because officials in USL, NWSL, and USL League One and MLS Next Pro as well are all covered under PRO2. That's a slightly separate group, even though it falls under the broader PRO structure. They are under a different collective bargaining agreement, and they can't be forced to cover those games and cross that picket line because they're ultimately covered by the same union. So they're not part of this labor dispute, but MLS could be dealing with replacement referees to start the season.
I sent you that GIF from, I think it was like 10 years ago, and the Seahawks played the Packers. And
that's the classic one.
The NFL referees where one guy said touchback, one guy said touchdown at the same exact time. That's my fear, that we're just going to get absolute gobshite refereeing if this does not get resolved.
It could be awful. It could be fine, but it's more likely not going to be good. I think people like to talk a lot of things about referees and often not understand that if this magical better refereeing group was there ever,
right, you're gonna get non-pros.
Maybe every single league in the world wouldn't spend most of its time with the fans complaining about referees. Funnily enough, the better referees aren't out there.
Where are they going to get them?
They're going to be people who don't work professional games by and large.
So are you going to be...
No. What do you think I am? Some kind of scab?
This is your opportunity.
I ain't crossing no picket line. No. That's not happening. That is not happening.
This is your opportunity for the big time.
No.
Show them how it's done.
No.
Take control of the game.
No. Right. But yeah, I think it's looking increasingly likely that we could see a work stoppage in MLS with that. It'll be interesting to see what happens because, again, I don't believe you're going to see a real impact necessarily on USL Championship and the officiating there. I think that the people who are officiating USL Championship games, by and large, will be still officiating USL Championship games, and MLS is going to have to reach down below that level, below. So, good luck, guys.
Sunday League.
Good luck. Anyway, of course, a little bit of other news, I think, just to finish off on Nisa. Wow, Nisa. We love a bit of Nisa, don't we?
I guess.
That little eyebrow raise. What do you think about Nisa there, Jake?
I don't know, man. I'm all for every community having a team, but some of these leagues, it's just... I'm a big do it the right way or don't do it at all type of person. And I feel like some of these leagues like Nisa are kind of right in the middle.
Well, I will pull out here a bit of reporting here from Dan Creel saying that US Soccer is currently vetting of Nisa's clubs isn't going smoothly. Well, that would, of course, delay things as we look ahead to the US Open Cup, waiting on information on that front. Also worth noting that today in Nisa, Albion San Diego announced they'll be going on a hiatus for the 2024 season, and they will see you back in 2025. I'll believe that bit when I see it.
I was literally just about to say
lower league teams going on hiatus tend not to come back. It can be done, but it's not guaranteed. So we will wait.
Fresno?
Yeah, I remember a lot of teams that have gone. I mean, OKC may come back one day, hey? OKC Energy FC. I mean, they kind of like tweet once a year, and everyone's like, "Oh, they're not dead," but they haven't played a game for a while. So,
like, it's different than an RGV that just says we're done.
Yeah, RGV just gave up. Like,
right, but when you say we'll be back, to them, and like, then you never come back.
I don't want to go back to RGV, to be perfectly frank. So I'm not complaining, but respect them for actually, just admitting they're done. They're done. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sad because I mean, but in all honesty, like if again, this is gonna sound pretty harsh, but if your community's highest level is Nisa, I mean,
Nisa's got so many problems, right? I mean, I mentioned PSRA earlier. The fact that they have to advocate because Nisa has a tendency to not make payments to referees. This is a professional league, or the players. I mean, again, or other stories that we won't delve into with a former Phoenix-based Nisa team that ended up effectively shutting down operations in the middle of a season. Its first season, that would be. Nice is just like the constant joke, and it's funny to me because it feels as though you see the leagues like NPSL, like UPSL, that are amateur leagues that are better run than Nisa is.
Right, and that's my whole point behind it. Like, if you're gonna call yourself a professional league, like the difference between pro and amateur is you hold yourself to a high standard. You're a pro. There are things you may not like that you have to do, but you have to do them because you are a professional. That is the definition of being a professional. You do the things at the highest level that you can. And they don't, and they just have a lot of empty promises, and I don't think they give a shit about their fans. And it just, if you do things in a shitty way, I just would rather just not see you exist.
Yeah. There you have it. There you have it. And speaking of empty promises, as we mentioned earlier, Max unfortunately will not be appearing on the tattoo live stream that we were expecting to have for our diehards on Thursday. Unfortunately, that has been postponed. We will find a date for you in the near future and update you as and when we are able to do so. So that means you're not going to see us until next week now. Next Tuesday, we'll be back at 6 o'clock. You know exactly where it is.
No, Thursday show? We can't even...
No, Thursday show. We're not doing Thursday shows at the minute. We're waiting until...
face the camera.
Waiting until things
face the music.
Face the music. Rumor has it, maybe we should have a really grilling interview with Max, I'm thinking. Do you think that would be a good idea there, Producer Eric?
Maybe we just spring it on him like an intervention.
Very true.
Could we ambush him? We're all here, just waiting for him. Girlfriend included.
Ooh, I like this. I like this idea. We should do this. We'll ambush him at some point. Don't worry. You won't know when, Max, but it's coming. It's coming. But yeah, we'll be back here next Tuesday at 6 o'clock, and Max should be here for that one, hopefully. He should be here. Tattooless Max Simpson will be here next Tuesday. We'll be on at Tuesday at 6. You know exactly where, because it's exactly where you are watching and or listening to it now. Check us out, of course, many of our other shows as well. And of course, you can check us out. Jake, you're on Twitter at JWA1994, correct?
Yes, sir.
Indeed. And our producer, Eric Ruby, is at Eric Ruby, correct?
That's right.
That is correct. You can find me online at OJEvans18. You can find Max wherever you hide your nearest disappointments. And yeah, make sure to tune in. Join us next Tuesday for a Tattooless Max Simpson, where you can remind him exactly what you think of him. Until then, good night.
We all silly like the mayor.